KYC with Finologee and our friends from IDnow and LSEG. My name is Jonathan Prince, co-founder and CSO at Finologee, and I'll be your host for the next hour. Thank you for joining us live on Microsoft Teams. We're really glad to welcome so many professionals from the Luxembourg financial ecosystem, so banks, PSFs, insurers, asset and fund managers. I believe you're all dealing with the same pressure points around onboarding, screening, and continuous compliance. A couple of quick notes before we start. The session runs between 12 and 1 o'clock. Please post your questions in the chat at any time. We'll address them in the Q&A at the end. We also do a short poll in a moment to gauge KYC digital maturity in the room. But first, let me introduce today's speakers and the flow. So we have Arnaud Gallut, Digital Identity Consultant at IDnow. He will follow with identity verification, how to digitize customer identification smoothly and compliantly inside the onboarding journey. Piet Craenen, Business Development at LSEG Risk Intelligence, formerly Refinitiv World Check, will be our speaker. He'll cover sanctions, PEP and adverse media screening, as well as ongoing monitoring. Then we'll finish with a live demo run by Stefan Kirsch from Finologee, showing both modules in action inside KYC Manager end to end. And finally, we'll open to a Q&A session with all the speakers. Right. Maybe to start with, for those that don't know Finologee yet, we're a Luxembourg platform builder and operator working with regulated institutions since 2017 to digitize critical financial and compliance processes. One important point is I wanted to stress up front is Finologee operates under a Luxembourg support PFS license. That means the way we design and operate platforms like KYC Manager is rooted in regulatory rigor, security, and auditability. So what is KYC Manager? KYC Manager is a centralized, modular, and scalable platform supporting the full client lifecycle, the onboarding, I'm losing my screen, the periodic and event-driven reviews, remediation campaigns, and continuous monitoring, all orchestrated in one place. What is important is that it's built on top of a workflow manager. That means that every institution can configure its own KYC journeys step by step by client type, risk appetite, internal policy, or regulatory requirement, rather than being forced into a rigid one-size-fits-all process. And KYC Manager is specifically designed for complex organization, handling complex client structures. Concretely, we start by supporting the second line of defense, your KYC, AML, risk and compliance teams with a clear operational dashboard. It gives them a consolidated view of all tasks to be performed, all cases in progress, prioritizations, exceptions, and audit trails, so they can manage workload and risk in a structured way. At the same time, the platform also includes a dedicated interface for the first line of defense, so the customer-facing teams who collect information and interact with clients. Those teams can be internal relationship managers, but also external distributors or brokers, depending on your operating model. So KYC Manager supports collaboration across lines of defense without blurring responsibilities. Finally, we provide a full outreach interface to our clients. That outreach can target individuals, legal entities, and even multi-layered corporate structures with complex UBO chains. So the platform isn't just about digitizing a single check. It's an end-to-end KYC operating system for organizations that must serve complex structures through complex networks under high regulatory pressure. And from there, institutions can activate native modules, data and document enrichment, UBO checks, risk scoring, case management, reporting, and obviously plug in best-in-class third-party components like the ones we're highlighting today. Okay, so I promised that we would do a quick poll. So from there, I'd like to start this poll before we hand over to Piet and Arnaud. A quick pulse check with third short polls. So the first question. So Eleonora, could you start the poll, please, for me? So the question, identity verification setup. Do you currently use a digital identity verification solution in your onboarding process? Yes, fully integrated, partially, pilot phase, no, still manual, not applicable. Please answer this question. And we see it's fairly well distributed. So in this case, yes, fully integrated, 23%, partially pilot phase, which is going to give some inspiration to Arnaud, I believe. No, still manual. So there's room for improvement here and not applicable. I believe that we can discuss that during the Q&A session. Don't be shy. So go for the second question. Screening and monitoring. How do you currently manage ongoing screening and monitoring? Automated with external data providers, semi-manual checks, internal list, limited automation, fully manual, not sure. Right, automated with external data providers, some answers still coming. Please don't be shy. It's only clicking on a button. So we see the vast majority are using an automated tool, or for the last part, semi-manual checks. Right. We will use that later on in the presentation, I believe. And then the third poll, third question, and last one. Technology ecosystem. What's your main challenge in digitizing KYC processes? System integration and interoperability, internal processes, governance, cost and resources, regulatory complexity. I'll give you a bit of time to answer. Right. So mainly around problem of integrating this into existing systems that could be legacy systems. Also looking at the regulatory complexity, which can become a hurdle. Cost and resources. We will try to give some answers here and convince you of a different view. Okay, I'm sorry. Clicked a bit too quickly there. Okay, thank you very much for these answers. So I'd like to start with the front door of every onboarding journey, identity verification. Because no matter how strong your monitoring is later, everything begins with a reliable, compliant, and client-friendly way to establish who the customer is, whether the customer is an individual or a complex legal entity. So Arnaud, thank you for joining us today. Could you walk us through how digital identity verification works in practice and how IDnow is embedded seamlessly in KYC Manager through our Web SDK ID check integration? It's over to you, Arnaud.
Thank you, Jonathan, for this introduction and handing me the opportunity to talk a little bit about what we do in this specific topic. So IDnow has been in place for now over a decade, serving customers worldwide with a very large presence in Europe, and specifically in the financial services industry. So it's interesting when you take a look at the scale of money laundering in the EU, because this has reached a very high level over the past few years. And it's definitely not set to decrease anytime soon, even though we are actually working with a large number of financial institutions to actually help making some steady progress with that regard. So when we look at specifically the challenges around fraud, you can tell that 80% of consumers prefer to use identity verification measures when engaging online, showing demand for digital solutions. So that figure is specifically interesting. So again, the customer pain points that we witness is the complexity around compliance. Indeed, compliance has shifted with a combination of country-specific regulations, European-wide regulations, and specific industry regulations as well. So the risk of getting compliance wrong is extremely high, which drives actually the cost for covering the ability to be compliant with your own and larger regulations. The fraud, as I just said, is evolving and increasing. The types of fraud, whether it's identity fraud, whether it's what we call synthetic identities, forged identities around documents, social engineering, money mule, and the rise of artificial intelligence is leading the game to make fraud evolving even more rapidly over the past few months and years. So this is something that is extremely impacting the ability to get your business right and managing the level of both fraud and costs related to that, and the risks related to that. Also, some of the big financial services constraints right now are slow growth, which is currently being experienced, whether being linked to legacy verification processes, or whether around the ability to cover some of the specific actions around remediation of your customer information. These are typically linked also with the ability to integrate with a new and a variety of systems where data relies and the ability to cover all those challenges. And last but not least, the ability to integrate customer verification into your processes to make it seamless for end user is extremely important, since the user friction that you experience is definitely a big challenge for your consumers to actually interact with your services. Jonathan, if you want to move to the next slide. So our goal is to actually help financial service providers stay compliant, help the protection, and scale with confidence. So achieving compliance, whether with the upcoming AML regulation, which is EU-wide, which will come into force from next year and fully enforce in 2027, and the eIDAS 2.0. So we already provide services through our QTSP service, which is a qualified trust service provider. So IDnow is already compliant with both eIDAS and AMLR. And we're future ready, providing solutions to maximize trust and the ability to make your business compliant. We also help you very much with fighting fraud and helping also by reducing the amount of friction in the ability to maximize the conversion rate of your customers by helping streamlining the whole process of the identity verification steps. And last but not least, of course, reducing losses, reducing also the costs that are associated with performing all those identity verification steps. So obviously, this is something important. If you go to the next slide, this is just a snapshot of each and every step of the customer journey where the identity verification, authentication, or digital signature that are steps where we have the ability to provide some value in your processes. So whether it is at a time of a new account opening, or whether it is at a time where you're making some changes to your user information, whether it's at a time where you're actually signing a new service or a new contract with your customers, we have the ability to provide specific verification and signing digital signature that helps consumer streamline their journey through the service that you offer them in a smooth fashion. Last but not least, tomorrow with the introduction of the digital wallet, which are the EU, what we call the EIDs, and the ability to interface smoothly with EIDs, regardless of where they come from. As you know, with EU 27 countries, there will be at least around 30 different types of originating electronic identification forms. So we also provide the ability to interface with these electronic IDs, and this is something that it will become very important in the near future. In almost the last slide, so this just to exemplify what we do, of course, in the financial services industry, but not only, because our ability to provide you a solution with identity verification is not just limited to specific use case of the financial services industry, as we provide some use case which also benefit a lot from internal compliance requirements when it comes to managing your own employees and third parties which interact with your own company. So these are just small examples of what we provide from a benefit standpoint. So to summarize, we have a multi-layer approach. So you move to the next slide, Jonathan. So our expertise can really help you to navigate through very fragmented regulations. So we can perform multi-step verification, some from the in-person verification. So we have the ability to provide you some capabilities which directly interface into your in-person verification. We provided automated verification with the digital IDs and the near-field communication capabilities of the latest of your electronic ID and physical ID cards. We provide also expert-led identity verification through video onboarding as well, and many more through automated and manual checks before moving to the ability to authenticate, do some biometric verification, a combination also of document verification, which can be fully automated, and also combined with manual steps and combined with background data checks, which are performed throughout your process. So we provide at every step of the way a solution to go into very deep levels of details and to be compliant with all the different regulations and requirements that your industry along the way around the identity checks. Last, so we have already a very strong regulatory acceptance within Europe. We serve already over 100 financial institutions across Europe. We have seamless integration that you will see into the demonstration later on, and we are really focused on going deeper into our fraud detection capabilities with our own artificial intelligence modelings that we've been working over the past 10 years on. And so we are fully integrated, as you will see, into the KYC manager that Jonathan will demonstrate later on. So thanks again for the opportunity to present. Feel free to reach out if you have further questions more specifically, and I'll be happy to answer the questions down the line during the rest of this session today.
Yeah, absolutely. Arnaud, thank you very much. That was very clear and concrete. And again, we can then pick some questions during this session, but to also put you in direct contact with some of the attendees of this conference. So now, once the identity is established and the customer is onboarded, compliance obviously doesn't stop there. Ongoing due diligence, especially sanctions, PET exposure, and adverse media is where I would say the real operational load sits today, and where regulatory expectations keep increasing. So let's move to the second part of the spotlight. Piet, we're really happy to have you with us. Could you walk us through how LSEG Risk Intelligence, previously WorldCheck, supports sanctions, PEP, and adverse media screening, and how this becomes a continuous auditable process once embedded into KYC manager workflows? Over to you, Piet.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. And I share my screen first of all. I will also follow up with a short demo of some use cases there. So I very much appreciate the title Smarter KYC, because at the end, that's what people in compliance and client onboarding want to achieve. They want to work smarter and not harder. A title, by the way, I used many times for client presentations. It's about giving the end clients, your regulated entities and corporates, the chance to make faster decisions, but also trusted decisions with a decent audit trail behind the scenes there. It's about not losing time on operational tasks that can be automated, and not losing time in gathered data, which is already structured somewhere. Yeah. We are indeed now known as LSEG Risk Intelligence, previously Refinitiv, previously Thomson Reuters Financial and Risk. And the global mission of LSEG Risk Intelligence is to help customer transact quickly, safely, and ethically through market-leading solutions that prevent financial crime, eliminate fraud, and empower risk decision. It's a high-level mission, of course, and we go into the details of how this is visualized and transformed into real tools for our clients. Yeah. We have mainly 4 solution sets, and I call them solution sets. It's not a single solution. And we are by far the most known for the WorldCheck brand. Thomson Reuters, Refinitiv, and LSEG acquired over 25 organizations in the past within the KYC space. And WorldCheck is the only company name we kept also as a product name because it's so reputable and so known in the market. So we'll speak about WorldCheck a little bit later. We offer also, aside the normal screening tools, also some managed screening in this field. The second set of solution is there are always cases where you need to perform enhanced due diligence, and this can be, if you look at the Luxembourg market, can be a private banking where there is a rich person knocking on the door, quite some money on the line, and you want to have a better view of the source of wealth of that individual. We have a team of 500 people that are often used by organizations to give this more detailed view. So we can do ad hoc checks on those ones. Another example is maybe in the private equity world where the private equity wants to invest in an asset or do a partnership with someone and buy a third-party organization, and they want a deep dive integrity check on this target company or the partner. So these 500 people are there for these deeper research capabilities and offer those to the clients. We also, like IDnow, active in the identity verification. We won't speak too much about it. It's around bio, doc, and database identification. Note that we acquired a company called GDC in 2022, which was the marketplace for confirming if a company or an organization, if an organization or an individual is existing, yes or no. Yeah, and then the last kit on the block is everything around account verification. You want to know if you do payment that you pay to the right destiny. So we have a global solution which covers 43 markets today, where we can link the bank account number with the bank account holder as well. So we call it global account verification, and it's built on the acquisition we did in 2020 of the Giact organization, which has a similar solution, but just for the US market. Good news, we have an anniversary this year. So we have the 25th anniversary of WorldCheck this year. We bought them in 2011. And since then, we have been growing the customer base quite rapidly and with good successes. And most of you will know what WorldCheck is, but it's of course a database which helps you to identify any sanctions, law enforcement or regulatory risks, identify PEPs, state-owned enterprise, and adverse media profile. And it's very much aligned to regulation, which is active and which obliges you to be compliant with that. The inclusion criteria, and that's very important, are limited by design. This means that if I'm not in WorldCheck, there is no information linked to the above criteria where found in the open source. We've purely concentrated what is available in open source. And each record then, once we create one, is linked to the content buckets you see on the slide. Note for the sanction coverage that we are ISAI 3000 certified. So this gives our client to guarantee they don't miss any real direct explicit sanction risk. Use cases very briefly. So we have multiple use cases. The classic one is the traditional name screening of individuals or companies, where we screen clients, suppliers, agents, intermediaries, vessels as well, quite importantly, ultimate beneficial owners, senior management officials, employees, and any other third parties, which is a classic one we offer. And then the second one is very much used is anything related to transaction screening. Am I paying something to a sanctioned individual or company, yes or no? And that's more concentrated around the sanction risk. Third use case that the Luxembourg players will recognize is the need for doing security screening. We, as being WorldCheck, are a leading provider of sanctions data, which is one part of the game. But then, of course, you need to link the sanctions, direct or indirectly sanctioned issuer, with the securities below that. And we are also a leading provider of financial data. And that's really a combination of the best of both worlds there. Okay. If we look at WorldCheck in itself, very short, what do we do different than other screening providers in this space? I think the market speaks for itself. We are still the fastest growing screening database, trusted by many public and private organizations, locally and globally. Via the buyers of WorldCheck, we have a lot of public partnerships, by the way. We are one of the founding partners of the Global Coalition to Fight Financial Crime, together with Europol and the World Economic Forum, to name some. But there's many public engagements on a senior level at LSEG via the buyers of the trusted dataset of WorldCheck. The main difference still comes from the 500 researchers. We have close to 500 analysts or researchers behind the scenes that scrutinize what is publicly available, and of course also by using a lot of technology to gather these specific data points. This results in a very structured data sets compared to the unstructured, if you do the Googles and the other ones, where it is really helpful to make a quick and a trustful decision when they onboard a client. So what the analysts will do in short is they will first of all verify if it's part of our inclusion criteria. If it's not among them, no need to document the negative news there. They will also verify if the news is already documented in the tool, and no need if look at Nicolas Sarkozy, where you have multiple updates a day over the last weeks and months, no need to make daily updates. It's only the instrumental changes in the updates which are documented in the WorldCheck database. We will also make links to other organizations and individuals. If there is a bribery case or a corruption case, we will make those links also visible in our structured database. And last but not least, very much appreciated by our end users, is the short, what I tend to call a compliance CV, which summarizes why a person is in WorldCheck. Very factual, very short, and also gives you the capability to translate, if you want, into 6 different languages on the back end there. Yeah. So finding a sanction risk is quite easy. It's publicly available, but we also target the non-trivial hidden risk. And we cover, for example, the implicit sanction risk, where you have the authorities will say, okay, these entities and individuals are on my sanction list, but it's up to the market participant to see if there is also an ownership layer, because if they own other organizations by more than 50%, this can be direct or indirect ownership, the underlying organizations then all deemed to be considered as a sanctioned organizations. And the research team of WorldCheck is constantly analyzing, once someone is on a sanction list, if they own underlying organizations, what we refer to as the implicit sanction risk, and I will also show an example on that one. We cannot have a presentation without AI, so artificial intelligence is also used by our teams, but we use it on top of the structured data set. So what you will see is that you have the WorldCheck data, and we link them to what we call SIC categories, special interest categories, which are 67 different underlying categories of adverse media. It allows our clients to very quickly say, okay, this is a PEP profile with negative news, and it's linked to fraud, for example. Yeah. The researchers in itself are also available. WorldCheck is not just a database you can use. You can also contact the analyst and say, hey, I found this profile, this article. Why is this person or organization not documented in WorldCheck? They're there to help and assist you and explain why it is not, or sometimes also create a profile based on the client request we get. We had a big launch this year at Cybos. I was there in Frankfurt. What you see for all actors today is that you have fixed publication times on the per day, which can be 2 per day or 5 per day, which means that if a sanction is known, and even our analysts found the update, that the publication is only done a few hours later at the publication date. What we will do as from today is publish the updates in real time. So if an analyst finds something and you screen 5 seconds later, you will get the hit in WorldCheck on the updated sanctions or other risks. Yeah. At Cybos, we announced WorldCheck On Demand and WorldCheck Verify, which are new delivery mechanism, but a very known mechanism is the WorldCheck One tool, which is also the one which is integrated with a KYC manager from Finologee, and which helps you to perform all these tasks and all view the data also within their platform. We are agnostic of where the data sits. API is the trend today, and we work very closely with Finologee to have the best experience on that level. Okay, so what I will do is I will share some examples just to illustrate what I told you. Can you see my WorldCheck screen? I imagine it is the case. So let me screen a random, not a random example, of course, but the name of an individual. It's a Dutch person known in the market as Frits van Eert. And if you screen that name, we will compare the name with the 5 to 6 million names which are documented in WorldCheck. And what you will see is that you find a hit there. It's a hit on the alias name, so he's known as Frits van Eert for the global public, but his real name is Godefridus Franciscus Theodorus van Eert. I understand why people tend to prefer to call him Frits as a short name. And if you look at the profile, you see, okay, there is a SIC tagging there, so there's negative news. There's no S or PEP, so it's not sanctions, no PEP there. And if you look further on the right side very quickly, you will see that he's in a category of crime financial. So he's been convicted for something, and he has a unique, of course, WorldCheck ID with a last update date in the profile. If you go into the details there of the profile, you will see that we structure the data, which makes it easy for you to read. If you go to the key data, further information, alias, keywords, connections, and sources there, and the key data really says to say, okay, this is my client, yes, no, date of birth, and he's been convicted for crime financial. Yeah, and the last update was a quite important one because we categorize each update between C1 and C4, C1 being very important. If we go to the CV of the client, very short. Who is he? He's the CEO of the Jumbo Group Holding. And what is found that he's sentenced in August 25 for 2 years of imprisonment. When this person was under investigation, you could see a compliance CV saying under investigation, and you see all the faces from initial investigation up to conviction there. Now we removed all the history. The only thing you need to know is he has been fined, and this is the reason why he's fined. And you want to read all the articles? They're all there for you from the sources we use to build that profile. Okay, so very structured data, easy to interpret, and very often the compliance CV helps you to make decision very quickly. An example linked to the implicit sanction risk, if you go for a company this time, and we take a company called, for example, Gemacor, and we screen that organization, screen it against the database, you should get a hit there, name matching software is doing the job, and then you see that he is in WorldCheck because it's a PEP profile, PEP organization, and we see also the SIG tagging there, there's some negative news there. If we go into the details there, yeah, similar to the individual looked at before, you will see the SIG tagging being implicit sanctions. So you know that this organization is a PEP organization, the negative news is there, and they are probably owned by UBO, which is directly sanctions. You go to the CV of this organization, and you see indeed that it's a production of medical instruments, and Rusnano is the main shareholder, and they are directly sanctioned. So the researchers, when Rusnano came on the sanctions list, and I think it was this summer, he's on the official sanction list, they do the indirect ownership below there and identify Gemacor as being sanctioned as a direct organization. We have also these connected companies there. Rusnano, the 3 owners of this company are there, and then you can go into connected dots of Rusnano and look at the profile behind there. Yeah. And by the way, what you will see is that all this data can be visualized within the Finologee platform, but sometimes people use also some ad hoc licenses like these ones I use for some deeper investigation and scrutinizing the data behind it and see, okay, these 3 organizations, are they linked to some other organization? Which one here you have Rusnano, are they linked to some other risky profiles, yes or no? So we go into the connected dots of WorldCheck. Yeah, just to make this a little bit more presented here also with some concrete examples. If we have time for a last example, I will do a last one. Otherwise, I'll pass on the word. I don't know how we are on time management.
Go ahead. You're fine.
I'm fine. Please. Perfect. Yeah. Thank you, Jonathan. So let's go closer to home. Yeah. Very, very, very document profile, and in the press everywhere. We spoke.
We could not have. It's current news. So yes, please go ahead with that one.
Nicolas Sarkozy, very concrete. So, of course, I should screen Nicolas Sarkozy as an individual. He's not an organization. And by using this, we scrutinize the content, of course, the screening content. So as an individual, I will obviously find a hit on Nicolas Sarkozy. And if you look at the details here, we see that he's a PEP profile. We see that there's negative news in there. And let's look at the details here on our Nicolas Sarkozy. So the last update was very recent, the 28th of November. He had some updates over the last months, but you won't find a million updates. Now, if you look at all the sources here, we have an update in November on the 27th and on the 28th, and then in October, in September, and then we go already into 25 there, unless the huge news we saw on the profile. And if you want to look at the bio of Nicolas Sarkozy, you will find, like any PEP, you will find the bio of his political career, which you will find back here, and you see if they're active or non-active as well. And then below there, on a structured way, date by date, since 2014, he has been on investigation for many different things. L'affaire Bic Malion, Écoute cases, and other ones. And if we go to the bottom there, just because this is in the fresh memory of all of us, you see the updates in September, October, and November, yeah, which gives you very quickly a kind of idea of what you can expect on this person. And if you want to read the sources, they are all documented as well in the profile. Okay. Yeah, that's what I want to share around WorldCheck. So very pleased to join this webinar. Very pleased to have this partnership with Finologee running, and we have multiple clients together using our combined solution set.
Thank you very much, Piet. I'll take control of the presentation again, but I'll hand it over later on to Stefan. So before I actually hand over, so I think it was important to see these two modules that are implemented. And we've seen that conceptually, even though Piet was kind enough to walk us through the clear demo of their own tool. What we wanted to show you here or next is take a look at it in real life inside KYC Manager. So these two best-in-class external modules orchestrated as steps in one modular KYC workflow. So it's feeding into the same case environment and audit trail. So basically, we wanted to show you and switch from what to how with this live demo. And Stefan, if that's okay with you, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jonathan. So allow me to share my screen. So as Jonathan was saying, the idea here now is to give you a brief introduction as to how KYC Manager works, how it operates, and how indeed it integrates now the solution provided by to partners IDnow and LSEG, and how basically the platform enables you to aggregate such providers into your existing workflow. So I now just connected to KYC Manager, and the idea is, Jonathan introduced it earlier on and during the webinar, is that the platform is really a tool that enables you to manage different types of processes related to KYC, ranging from onboardings to periodic reviews. So the idea is that this tool is really being used by internal compliance teams and KYC officers. And basically the tool they would connect to is this one, KYC Manager, and they would land first on this dashboard, giving them an overview of what's taking place within the platform. So in a nutshell, by connecting, the user sees what files he's currently working on, the currently files which are pending review. So he lands on this dashboard, giving him high-level information. This dashboard as well is entirely adjustable. Certain triggers, reminders can be configured accordingly, and you can also segregate information for your teams. So you can have certain files being reviewed by the compliance officer, whereas the team members can only have the dedicated files. You then have the file section where you can indeed manage your internal client files. So to this extent, you have then the name, the associated client, this dossier status. So again, that's in the context of an internal review, what's the current status of the file. And then you have the flow status. In this context, it's really in regards to the flow. Again, whether it's an onboarding or a periodic review, you can evaluate where the client lies in this process. Finally, you have as well the risk score and the internal assessment that your teams can perform within the platform. Now, bearing in mind, now I'm going to take an example in which we embedded those providers. The workflow you will be seeing is fairly concentrated, let's say, on an individual, but we know that most of you attending today are working in the financial sector in Luxembourg, and that you're mainly working with complex entities having complex structures. So basically the workflows adapt themselves accordingly. But here, for the sake of clarity, of showing how those two modules actually operate, the workflow will be focusing on an individual. In this case, I'll be that individual. So here, in this context, you see first information about the client file. So you find file level, the risk score, which is based on the internal risk matrix of our client. You can assign tasks, questionnaires, related parties to see the link that your client might be having with different entities. So again, here the idea is for you to be able to manage ultimate beneficial owners, corporate entities, holding structures within a process to which your client is linked. And then basically you have then here the dossier responsible, which is the person that can legally represent the client to provide information. So in this case, let's say that the client is indeed the dossier responsible. We kept it easy for this one, but again, depending on the case, it can be whomever is able to represent your client. And you basically invite them to connect to the platform to start providing information. Again, this can be done either in the context of an onboarding or a periodic review. And the idea is that the client then receives an invitation inviting him to connect, as you see here. So basically the client gets an invitation that is white labeled to the name of the company, saying, dear client, in the context of an onboarding, you are requested to provide certain information. Can you please connect and provide this information? So the client connects and starts providing in the information. So here, this is the step where basically the workflow is configured with our client. So again, this is where we really capture all the information and configure it as such in the context of an onboarding for a complex structure with the various section here. So again, what you see here is fairly, let's say we kept it simple. We focused on an individual for the sake of clarity in this demo, but you can make it way more complex, having holding ultimate beneficial owner structures involved, SPVs in the as well to really have the complete overview of your client. So if I now go under identity, you see here that the first step indeed is that I have to provide my corporate ID documentation to basically provide this information in the workflow. So this is basically where we embed the IDnow module. So what I'll do now is, like you see here, I'm on my laptop, but basically I now also receive an invitation on my phone inviting me to start taking pictures of my ID document, front, back, and so on. So I'll be sharing my phone screen as well, so you can see how it looks like. Basically, this is based on the fact that you do have the credentials of your client, meaning phone number. So he gets a text message from KYC manager. He clicks on the link that he has been provided with. And here I'm now switching to a different interface where basically I'm going to take a picture of my ID document. You see here, I can either scan or upload it straight from the phone. In this case, I'm going to take a photo of my ID document. Just a photo. Now, the back side. Now you see the system is now up evaluating and checking my ID card to this extent. And then we can indeed as well implement additional steps such as a liveness check, inviting me now to basically look up and right. So I'll do this now. Up, allow. See, and now I'm done on the steps related to my phone. All documents have been verified and my identity has been verified. So the IDnow module now did its job properly and the client is done. In this step, he can now proceed switching back again on the KYC manager interface that he is completing with the step. So the information has been fetched. So if he moves on to this step, you see that basically all the information now has been pre-populated based on what's available on the ID document, and for the rest he then has to fill it in manually, but whatever is available is captured automatically. Same for here, basically the ID card number is captured automatically, as well as the expiration date. So that's how we can streamline it, as well automate the processes related, for instance, to ID document renewal, because automatically expiry dates of ID documents are being captured. So now I basically can as well view all the documents that have been captured in the process. So typically the front picture I took of my ID document, but more importantly, you see here as well a liveness check report evaluating the authenticity of the document, as well as the analysis report issued by IDnow in this context. So this is done. It's uploaded in the workflow as well. And then the client proceeds. He goes on with the questionnaire, again, which is this time configured based on the KYC manager workflow that is configured again with the client. So he provides the various information that is requested from him in the context of an onboarding. So I'll quickly skip through these steps of the documents, the related parties, signatories, and the idea is that basically after he completes all this information, a PDF profile is generated in which he can review all the information that he uploaded, as well as see again the documents that are captured by IDnow in this case. And then when he's done, he can sign electronically. So we can as well embed electronic signature at the step or not. It's up to a client to decide whether he wants that in the workflow. He confirms and then he pushes. The information has been pushed back to the system and the client is done. He can download the report and now the KYC team can take over the process. So if I switch again to my interface, my back office interface up, in this case, I'll take it from there. So you see here the status of Stefan Kirsch has been changed, dossier status to submitted, because I submitted the information. Now that I click on the profile, an action list comes up and I need to perform a risk review on this client. So you see here on dossier responsible, the client provided all the information, among which the information related to his identity. And I can find the document if I go on the page here at this level, where I can find then the various documents he uploaded. Again, the liveness check report, the front and back pictures, and so on. And then I can approve or manifest that there's an issue with the documents. For instance, if we would have uploaded this manually, you can basically manage this accordingly. Now, Trace, going back now to the second module that would have been integrated, it's integrated within the enhanced due diligence. So basically at this level, this is where we would integrate LSEG's screening module. So you see here, basically the various parameters against which the individual or the company should be screened against. So this is where we basically then plug in the existing contract with LSEG, as well reflecting the respective lists that the client has as part of his contract. So in this context, negative news issue with the regulator or negative observation whatsoever can be reflected as well as on the client side, where you find the various lists which can be screened as well. So the country risk, the industry, whether he appears on a sanction list, on a criminal conviction list, on negative news, or as a politically exposed person. So in this case, you can perform the check here. I'm doing it manually, but basically when he gets, when the individual gets uploaded in the system, this screens all run automatically. And if there's whatever hit there might be, then the client can perform an investigation on this, on these checks, assign, for instance, if there's a false positive, a manual result to it, and add a comment. And he will as well find the information here in the document section. So the whole report that Piet introduced to you with the various information that the LSEG would provide would be reflected in the document section. And if required, and if additional checks need to be performed, then the client always has the possibility then to switch to the interface of LSEG to further drill down and go and have additional granularity levels within this interface. But here we tend to aggregate from a high level standpoint what we extract and have it reflected here to really have all those processes aggregated within the platform. So in a nutshell, I've addressed this quite briefly, but I believe this gives you quite a good idea of how this workflow manager actually orchestrates itself and how we do plug in these various modules in the interface. So I'll now cut the screening, and basically I believe now that it's we are already coming close to the end of this hour, and it's still 5 minutes left for the Q&A session.
Right, thank you very much. Thank you for this clear walkthrough, Stefan. I think that summarizes what KYC Manager provides in terms of, oh, sorry, I'm again losing my screen. The backbone, the modular workflow backbone, and what the leading providers like IDnow and LSEG plug into and deliver faster onboarding, stronger risk control, and continuous compliance. So indeed, let's open to the Q&A. I saw in the chat already, and thanks for that, that there are already 3 questions. One from Christoph. Is it possible to enable the document verification without the liveness check? So I can answer, or Arnaud. So from KYC Manager Finologee perspective, absolutely. There are 2 separate products here. There's one which is the ID check part, and correct me if I'm wrong, Arnaud, but I think you cover a bit more than 190 countries with different types of ID documents, going from ID cards to passport to driver's license, etc., etc. But the liveness check is another check that you can add. It's not mandatory. Correct, Arnaud?
Correct. Yes, absolutely. We do cover over 200 identity document types, and we also cover about 2,300 types of documents that we have integrated with. And indeed, from a liveness perspective, we have a variety of options to also interface liveness capabilities from our solutions in order to actually do a liveness comparison of the customer's face with the identity documents that we have used previously. So this is a native capability, and it is modular. Indeed, as you mentioned, Jonathan, the service is not a prerequisite, but it's certainly an option that is natively interfaced and provided by our service.
There's actually a follow-up question from Christophe to you, Arnaud, on the main challenges we face with IDnow adoption is with the text message that initiates the process, which seems to affect user trust, specifically when a dossier responsible sends the IDnow request to other parties. What specific steps are you planning to take to improve user confidence in this part of the experience? Do you have any answers here? Is there?
Well, I think it's a good question in the sense that every interaction of the identity verification process is fully configurable so that we can actually leverage the response that we provide. Whether the response is yes, okay, this verification has been performed and it matched, or whether there is a simple warning about the response on the identity verification task, or whether the verification is actually in error, or let's say is not okay, so there's not a match on the verification. So this is always highly configurable. It can be very simplified as well. But so the response that comes from our service is typically interfaced into the overall process of the customer onboarding or any other given process. So when you do an identity verification, for instance, for the digital signature of a new contract. So to make it short, basically, the service is entirely configurable so that we can very much adapt to the level of response that we provide into your own customer process. The benefit of the KYC manager that Finologee has put together is that it simplifies how the identity verification is being performed and can be directly interfaced also with your own processes. So we are very well ready to either help you if you're an existing IDnow customer, or certainly have a conversation with Finologee with the use of the service.
So yes, Christophe, you can customize the outreach text message.
Totally.
We can have a chat with the delivery team later on. Maybe just to answer Gerard. So in how far you integrated, or will you integrate the potential and possibilities provided by the eIDis wallet up to come? So Arnaud, you mentioned it. So from KYC manager perspective, that is indeed a solution that we will implement either through our friends from IDnow or others. Again, just to explain, we are aggregating different modules. So we put together what fits the best our clients' requirements and needs. So IDnow is a long-standing partner. We've been working with them since the very beginnings of Finologee with the video onboarding at the time for key trade, and we then switched to also implementing the ID verification. So there are many advantages and benefits to working with them, because we've been really improving also a lot the user experience together. And so the eIDis wallet is part of the plan. Obviously, this is something we're indeed going to embrace. Maybe a quick question also from Dirk. In Luxembourg, iHub is also active and known in the KYC space. What are the main differences between KYC Manager and their solution? I'll take that one if that's okay with you, gentlemen. So iHub is indeed a solution that is more designed for retail banks, and is also basically serving their shareholders, which are the retail banks. And there's specifically focusing on that kind of clientele. In the context of iHub, there's also managed services here. In the context of Finologee and KYC Manager, we provide the software, as you understand. So it's provided to the back office team, and also, as we mentioned, can be used by the front office teams to perform some of the data and document retrieval. But we really provide the software, first of all, that will operate under PSF license, and also target more complex organizations that are serving complex structures. So probably a bit less towards the retail, even though we do have clients such as Moneyflow, who is retail-ish in that sense, and has a full automated onboarding for low to no risk profiles. Nevertheless, we serve, as Luxembourg is quite known for serving complex structures. We would be more in this area of the industry, serving complex organizations, serving complex structures. Hope this clarifies. Giampiero will contact you because you're asking for a very specific question, which is the showing the document matrix and management. This would take a bit too long, so if it's okay with you, we'll follow up just after this meeting. In any case, what we're going to do is share with all of you the a deck, a follow-up, if you are expecting that it will happen. And I want to give a big thank you to Piet and Arnaud for joining us today and sharing your expertise. And thank you all for attending and for the great questions. So slide deck will follow up, a short recap, and a link to book a one-to-one session if you want to explore KYC Manager in your own context. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great afternoon and speak soon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.